She's been telling her story since 1995. Rebecca was conceived in rape and was targeted for abortion. And today she is known as an international pro-life and adoption advocate. She's been all over the United States, Canada, Ireland, and Scotland, tirelessly promoting life by speaking at life events, crisis pregnancy centers, fundraisers, high schools, and adoption centers. She has been honored by Feminists for Life as one of their internationally named Remarkable Pro-Life Women. She's appeared on CBN's The 700 Club, Good Morning America, CNN's Talk Back Live, among other television shows. Her story was also featured in Glamour magazine titled My Father is a Rapist. Rebecca is a family life attorney in Michigan, and she's been married for 12 years and homeschools her 5 children. So if you would, please give a Spencer, Iowa welcome to Rebecca Kiessling.
I'm very glad to be here. I was adopted nearly from birth, and like many adoptees, for years I dreamed to be able to meet my birth mother. My search began on my 18th birthday, and I was shocked to have been told on that day that that door was closed, that I would never have the opportunity to meet her, and that was very difficult for me. But I went ahead and I petitioned for what's called my non-identifying information. And when it arrived, it had everything you can imagine about my birth mother except for her name. It had her eye color, hair color, height, weight, age, the age of my half-brother and half-sister, who were 11 and 13 when I was born, her ethnicity, religious background, occupation, educational level, detailed medical history. And I just hung on to every word. But then for my father, it said that he was Caucasian and of large build. And that was it. And I thought, that sounds like a police description. I mean, come on, she couldn't even say his eye color, hair color, nothing. And I thought it over. I mean, what could the possible explanation be? And I called up my caseworker, and I asked her, was my mom raped? And she said, yeah, I didn't want to tell you. And I was just devastated. I remember feeling so ugly and so unwanted, and thinking, who would ever love me? Who's ever going to want to marry me and have a family with me? Because the explanation from my adoptive brother, who was in and out of jail and prison from the age of 16, was that socially deviant behavior is genetic. Well, great, what does that mean about who I am? Do I have this ugliness lurking inside of me? If I would give birth to a son someday, would he become a rapist? And I really believe that a nice guy wouldn't want to get involved with someone like me. And then, of course, at the same time, I thought about the issue of abortion, because that's what you always hear about, right? Growing up, abortion wasn't talked about a whole lot in my family. When I was 12, my 16-year-old cousin had one, and I recall the discussions being that this was not a good thing. In high school, I remember studying this issue and seeing photos of aborted babies and being horrified. But I didn't identify with that. I didn't think, oh, that could have been me. No, I thought it was just some sad story where she couldn't afford to keep me, but abortion doesn't apply to my life. I thought. I turn 18, I get this information, and it has to do with my very existence. And it was as if I could hear the echoes of all those people who would say, well, I'm pro-life, except in cases of rape, Or, I'm pro-choice, especially in cases of rape. And now all those people were talking about me, about my life. And I felt like I had at least half the world against me. That there's all these people out there who don't even know me, who are standing in judgment of my life, so quick to dismiss it just because of how I was conceived. And I felt like I was now going to have to justify my own existence, that I would have to prove myself to the world that I shouldn't have been aborted and that I was worthy of living. And after a while, I had it all worked out in my head that if I could just meet this certain societal standard that's out there that dictates what one's value is, if I could just make myself attractive and successful, and if I could just find that relationship where someone would love me, then I could have value and I could feel good about myself. And I figured that people could then look at me and say, oh, well, look at Rebecca, this nice, young, attractive, intelligent woman. Clearly, Rebecca shouldn't have been aborted. And then everyone would just see the light, and single-handedly, I could bring an end to abortion in this world. And thank God, I am not the savior of this world. And I couldn't even save myself. But isn't that message so prevalent in our society? That your value is based upon perhaps how you were conceived, who your parents are, what you look like, how smart, how athletic, what university you attend, what you do with your life, how much money you make, what kind of house you live in. Motivational speakers will tell people that if you could just make something of yourself, then you too could be somebody. Well, you know, not everybody has those opportunities or capabilities, and people mess up in life. And so what then? They're not somebody, or they're nobody. Some people would tell you that your value is based upon the sum total of your successes versus your failures. And if your successes in life outweigh your failures, well then, you're a person of value and you have something to offer this world. But if your failures outweigh your successes, if you've just messed up too many times in your life, or if your burdens outweigh your benefits, then in the ledger sheet of life, you're a liability. And you're either not worth as much as everybody else, or you're disposable. And I guess I had really bought into that lie. And I wanted to have all of my assets lined up so people could look at me and see me as being a person of value. At a time in my life when I felt like I was being devalued every day. And isn't that why so many young women choose abortion? Because they think that somehow their life is not going to be worth as much if they have this child out of wedlock, that would be seen as a failure. Or they think that they wouldn't be as marketable for marriage in the future, or that they couldn't get their college degree in just the right amount of time, and they want to stay in the rat race, they want to be a person of value, and they buy into abortion as being their solution. I understand what it's like to feel that way. I ended up settling in relationships like I should be thankful that somebody would want to be with somebody like me. I jumped into relationships, so if after a short amount of time and a few intense conversations, a guy was telling me that I was the most amazing girl that he'd ever met, I'd take him at his word because I wanted so much to believe that was true. I wanted to know that somebody else could see me that way. I wanted to know that I was someone who was lovable. And I just had this huge hole in my heart that I desperately wanted filled. Those relationships became more and more controlling and then abusive until ultimately I was beat up by a boyfriend from law school. He broke my jaw. My front tooth was hanging. I had to have all kinds of surgery to have it put back in, root canal, more surgery to try to save it. I was told I could still end up losing my front tooth someday. And after 13 years, I had to have it pulled, which again was devastating. But I was speaking at a banquet in Alabama, and an expert in cosmetic dentistry came up to me afterwards and offered to do all of my teeth for free as part of the Give Back a Smile program for victims of domestic violence. And he didn't just do 3 with a bridge and 4 to match, but he did 8 teeth with porcelain veneers, so. And I share that story with you because it's another example in my life where there was something that happened that was really really awful. But then something beautiful came out of it. And isn't that what God is famous for? The worst evil that man has in store, God can take and use it for good, for his glory. It's the story of Joseph in Egypt. What man meant for evil, God can use for good. And it's the story of our Savior. And the story doesn't have to end with the violence having victory. And this is just such perfect timing because the storm ended. I keep looking at the sunshine out there, and I bet there is a rainbow in that sky right now. And if it weren't for storms, we wouldn't have rainbows. Well, I am very thankful for this nice new set of teeth, but let me make one thing clear. That does not make me pro-domestic violence.